All right, let's move on. I want another lookup function to talk about here. VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP are wonderful tools, but they're basically you search from one column or one row, and that's it. Index allows us to extract information from a more complex data structure, a table. So look here. We've got this simple thing here. We're selling books, right? And depending on the type of book and the condition, there's a price for it. So like this first one here is fiction new. So you would come over here and say, okay, here's the fiction, and here's new, and there's the price is $12, right? You just do that. You do it a lot quicker than I explained it, but that's what you do. And here's science good. So you'd come over here. There's science. There's good. And the price is $40. And so you could fill that thing in. But we don't want to have to fill this in because there's hundreds of rows here. We want to have Excel do it so we can go on and do more meaningful work. All right. So to do that, we're going to use two functions. One's called the index. The other's called the match. So I'm just going to insert a couple of extra columns here because I don't want to write the formula all at once. Okay. And I'm just going to label these to help me remember what I'm doing. So I'm going to use one, I'm going to figure out which row I'm looking for and then which column I'm looking for. All right. Which row in this table that we want to use is determined by the type of book. So, like, science is in row 2, humor is in row 4, and so on, right? So what I need is some tool that would just return that number. Say I need row 4, or row 2, or whatever. And so we're going to use the match function to do that for us. So we'll just say equals match. And it simply says, look for an item in this list and tell us what position in the list it's in. So, okay, so there's the item we're looking for. It's the type of book, comma. The list is just those row headers. So it's going to look down through there for fiction, and then we're going to say comma. And since those are in, I don't know, some arbitrary order, we're going to have to tell it to do an exact match, right? Just keep going until you find exactly the same thing. So that's a 0 here. Close parentheses. And this list, we want to keep referring back to the same place over and over again, so we should make that an absolute reference. Okay. And I don't know, for whatever reason, it decided to format that as currency, so we'll just clear the formats on that. There we go. Okay, so what that's telling us is that fiction is in row 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Yep. So that looks pretty good. So we'll just copy this down. And let's see, humor is in row 4. That's correct. Romance is in 5, and so on. So that's right. Questions about the match function? It's just telling us where in the list it is. Okay, so now we know which row it is. Well, we can use a similar strategy to figure out which column we're in. So we'll just do another match here. It's pretty much the same idea. And the column that we want is determined by the condition of the book. So there's that thing, and then our list over here, like that, right? It's the column headers, column. They're not ranges, and they're not in ascending order, so we're going to have to tell it to do an exact match, which is a 0 in this case. And again, we don't want this lookup list to be moving around as we copy the formula down, so we're going to make that part an absolute reference. And again, it did that. I don't know, clear the formats. All right. So new is in column 1. That looks pretty good. So then we copy this thing down. And let's see, it says, here's 1, 4. Poor is in column 4. That's very good. Here's a 2. Humor is, good is in column 2. All right? So that looks like we got it done. So now we know which row and column from that table we want to extract a piece of information from. So then we'll use the index function to extract that piece of information. So in the next column over, equals index open parentheses. First thing you do is you tell it the table that you want to extract a piece of information from. So we just want to highlight the numbers in the table, not the row headers, not the column headers. So just highlight the numbers. Okay, so there's our lookup table, comma, and then from that table you tell it which row and column you want to use. So we've already calculated those. So here's our row number, comma, and our column number, close parentheses. All right. Now, as we copy this formula down, we want to make sure that this lookup table doesn't move down. So the table array, that first part, should be a absolute reference. Okay. So fiction new. Fiction new is $12. $12 is what we've got. So we seem to be on the right track. So we'll just copy this down. And here's an $8 one. Humor fair. Whoa. What happened? Oh, humor fair, $8. That's right. And we'll just pick one more. Just here's a romance. Romance new is $5. All right. So we've checked it enough to satisfy our curiosity. It looks like it's going to work. So, question about the index function and match? Pretty straightforward, I think. So you just figure out what row you want, what column you want, and then you use the index function and you extract that piece of information. Okay. Now you can go further than this. In the next example, there's we have to figure out the shipping, and the shipping is based on three things: the weight, what zone it's in, which you can consider zones distances, how far we have to ship the thing, and then how fast they want it. There's express, and there's normal, and there's slow. All right. So now we have a three-dimensional structure, and basically it's the same idea here. We tell it which one of these three tables we want to pull the information from, and then we give it the row and column, and it pulls out that piece of information for us. All right. So I'm just going to use a matched. So this is going to be, express is going to be table 1, normal is going to be table 2, and slow is going to be table 3. All right. And so in our heads, we'll just remember that. And over here, I'm just going to type those in because I want to use match again. Express, normal, slow. I can use an if here too if I wanted to, but why not use match? Okay. So we have to check. Well, basically, what we have to do is translate this slow to a 3 and a normal to a 2 and so on. Right? So we'll put an extra column in here, and we'll just use match. The function of the moment, and so we'll pick the type, comma, and then just that little list that we created someplace. And close parentheses, and again, the list we don't want the list to move around, so we'll make that part absolute, and slow is 3, that's good, normal is 2, express is 1, so we've checked it out, and it's working fine. Okay. Now, I got away with not doing 0 here because those happen to be in this alphabetic order, right? E and S. So again, when you make sure when you're doing these lookups, you have to be aware of how the data in the list is arranged. So anyway, that works nicely. So now I've got that, and then we have to calculate. The zone, we have to translate that into something. So the zone is the row. So let's add a couple more columns here again. Let's just do this piece by piece. So this would be the row part, and over here will be the column part. Okay, equals, match again. The zone for that particular order, comma, and again, A, B, C, D, E, F, close parentheses. The lookup list here, A through F, we want that to stay put, so we'll make sure that we make that an absolute reference. And there we go. We have that. Okay. And again, they were in ascending order, so I didn't have to worry about doing an exact match there. Okay. So those two were pretty easy to do. All right. Now, we need to determine which column they're in. And again, we're going to do a match here. But match works like, if you look up here, when you've got ranges like this, you have to have the bottom of each range here. So what I'm going to do is, let's do it here. I'm just going to insert, whoops, let's just do this. Well, actually, I can just do it up here. I'll just put it up here. 0 is the bottom of that range. 2 is the bottom of that range. And let's just put 6 here. Okay. So again, over here, we just do a match. And if you wanted to, I suppose you could do an if statement here. But we're just, again, we're talking about match. Let's just use that. So where's weight? Right here's weight. There we go, comma. And then that new little lookup list we created right there. Close parentheses. And we can make that an absolute reference. And we've got that. 2, right? So weight is 2 pounds. That's in the second column. That's right. Here's a weight that's 9 pounds, which is in the third column. And here's one that's 1 pound, which puts us in the first column. So again, we check it to make sure that it's working right. Okay, so we got all 3 parts working. Now we can just use the index function to extract the piece of information. Equals index. Open parentheses, open parentheses. If you have more than one table, they have to go in a set of parentheses by themselves. So we've got 2 open parentheses now. And then you just highlight the tables in the order that you're thinking about them. So we said express was going to be our first table. And again, just the numbers, not the row column or column headers, comma. Second table. Comma. Third table. When you're done defining all your tables, you do a close parentheses, comma. Then you tell it which row and column. And so we figured those out. Row is in M3. And column is in N3. And the table, which one of those 3 tables we want, is back in L3. Close parentheses. Okay? So it's row, column, and which of the tables that you're using. Okay, so this says the way this is set up here says go to table 3, and then in whatever row column it is here, extract that piece of information. Now, we don't want those tables to move around, so that whole thing there inside the first set of parentheses is set to absolute, like that. So, and we just copy this down. And there's our shipping. All right? And you can do that. Now this would be a prime candidate for copy and paste. We've got this, like, let's go back here and just look at price for a second. It's a little bit simpler to understand. What's an F3 and G3? F3 and G3 are formulas, right? So now that we got this all done, we can copy this bits of formula. Here's F3. We could copy that and paste it in here, and then do the same for G3, and then we can get rid of those 2 columns and clean up our table and make it look real professional. Okay? So questions about index or match? All right. So on P2, you get to try it with a slightly different example, but it's the same idea. So go ahead and start working on that.